Paramount Lector Osivane Thul had read every human war. He found them tedious. Loud, brief, decisive, species barely passed fire discovering that metal was sharp. He scrolled through the catalogue on his command dais, 12 years of engagement reports compiled by Hegemony Intelligence, and felt the familiar contempt settle like ballast in his chest. 12 years. And yet here, in the data, humans had done something that no species in recorded hegemony history had ever done. They had simply stopped. Velkareth. His adjutant appeared at the edge of the dais light. Run the silence interval again. The holographic timeline bloomed above them, a red line of human military activity, sharp and frantic in the early years after the Kepler station engagement, and then, nothing. A flat, unbroken line extending from year 3 to the present day. No fleet movements. No weapons tests detected. No encrypted command traffic. No colonial expansions. No construction signatures beyond civilian infrastructure. 12 years of nothing. They are exhausted, Velkareth offered. The Kepler action broke their strategic nerve. Thul said nothing. He studied the flat red line the way a surgeon studies an unexpected absence of bleeding. Something about it disturbed him in a register he could not name. 14 light-years away, in a bunker carved 3 kilometers beneath the Martian surface, Admiral Adise Okonkwo was doing what she had done every morning for 12 years. She was reading the casualty list from Kepler Station. Not because she had forgotten the names. She knew every one of the 412 by heart, their cadences, their rhythms, the way certain surnames caught in her throat like a splinter that never quite worked its way out. She read them because forgetting them, even partially, would have made the waiting easier. And the waiting could not be easy. It had to be held. Admiral. Lieutenant Son Bubatunda appeared in the doorway, young enough that the fall of Kepler Station existed for him only as history and grief borrowed from people like her. The Lector's fleet has crossed the outer beacon threshold. All 943 vessels. All of them. Chief Strategist Miriam Voss looked up from her station across the room, a quiet light entering her eyes. Every capital ship. Every support tender. The full expeditionary force. Adise set down the list. She folded it, a physical printout, the same one she had carried since year 1, edges soft from handling, and placed it in her breast pocket, against the left side of her chest. Then they're in the basin, Voss said. Yes. Adise stood. Close the door behind you, Son. Thul's fleet crossed the heliopause of the human home system at 0300 standard, and the silence that greeted them was total. No distress signals. No emergency broadcasts. No scrambled intercepts. The 943 vessels of the Sethavari 9th Expeditionary Force spread across the outer system in a formation the hegemony called the Velthari, the enclosing hand, and found nothing to close around. Human orbital platforms registered their presence and went dark. Civilian transports that had been running scheduled routes between the planetary bodies simply stopped moving. Not fleeing. Not accelerating away. They simply held position and went silent. As though they were waiting to see what came next. This is what they always do, said Fleet Speaker Inera Thul, the Lector's daughter and tactical commander, from her station 2 decks below. Her voice carried the same certainty her father had been growing less comfortable with for the past 6 hours. They are paralyzed. They cannot project force at this scale. They have no fleet in position, Velkareth confirmed. No warships detected within engagement range. Then we advance, Inera said. As planned. Thul said nothing. He watched the silence. He had read every human war, and in every one of them, a species under existential threat had done something, had thrown whatever it possessed at the approaching force, even ineffectually, even suicidally. It was a universal constant. Cornered organisms fought. It was biology. Humans were not fighting. Hold advance, Thul said. Inara's voice came back taut. Paramount Lector. Hold. He stopped. Voss pulled up the feed, hands moving quickly. The vanguard formation has halted. He's not advancing. Adiz stood over the tactical display and watched 943 icons sit perfectly still in the outer system. Good. Good instincts, Paramount Lector. She almost respected it. He knows something is wrong, Babatunda said, very quietly, the way young people say things they're afraid to say out loud. He feels something is wrong, Adiz corrected. Which is different. He doesn't know what, yet. She looked at Voss. How long before his supply calculation forces his hand? Voss checked her figures she had been refining for 9 years. At full fleet stop with active life support for 943 hulls. He has approximately 31 hours before his consumption margin inverts. After that, he must either advance to resupply from captured infrastructure, or begin the withdrawal that destroys his campaign. 31 hours. Adiz had waited 12 years. She could wait 31 hours. Tell no one to move, she said. Tell no one to transmit. Not a signal. Not a ping. Not a navigational light that wasn't already on. She looked around the room at the people who had lived inside this silence with her, who had carried the weight of it the way you carry a stone in your chest, learned to breathe around it, learned to walk upright with it. Hold. At hour 14, Thul ordered a probe. 3 light destroyers into the inner system, weapons hot, sensors at maximum aperture, with orders to provoke a response. They found nothing. The destroyers swept through the asteroid belt, through cislunar space, through high planetary orbit, and detected no military presence. One of them passed within 400 kilometers of a human orbital installation the size of a small moon. Dark, apparently dormant, no energy signature beyond minimal life support, and its sensors returned nothing threatening. The destroyer's captain transmitted back, no hostile presence detected. Installation appears to be an agricultural platform, pre-war construction. No weapon systems identified. Thul read the report 3 times. The installation was the Adullam platform, built in year 2 of the silence. Hegemony Intelligence had catalogued it as a food production facility. They had watched it constructed. They had watched it provisioned. They had watched 17,000 human workers live aboard it for a decade, tending hydroponic arrays and protein vats, and had concluded it was exactly what it appeared to be. Miriam Voss had designed it to look precisely like what it appeared to be, because it was easier to hide the truth inside a truth. 17,000 workers had tended those hydroponic arrays. They had also, in the hours between their shifts, in the corridors beneath the agricultural decks, calibrated targeting systems that had been assembled component by component over 9 years, registered as spare parts in 14 different supply manifests, and never once transmitted a single signal that would identify them. 412 targeting systems. 1 for each name on Adiz's list. At hour 29, Thul's supply margin inverted. He felt it before Velkareth reported it, a shift in the mathematics of the situation, a door closing behind him that he had not seen until it was shut. He looked at the 943 icons of his fleet spread across the outer system, at the supply lines that stretched back through human-claimed space, at the 31 days of operational margin he had entered the system with now reduced to 2, and understood with the sudden clarity of a species that had never once needed to learn patience, because they had never once faced an enemy who possessed it, that he had been standing in a constructed silence. They had let him extend. They had watched him move his entire force into the basin of their home system. They had let his supply lines lengthen until they were threads. The silence had not been stillness. It had been geometry. Velkareth. His voice was very controlled. Identify all human-registered platforms within engagement range of the fleet. The answer came back in 17 seconds. 911. How long have they been present? Construction records indicate. Between 4 and 11 years, Paramount Lecter. Thul closed his eyes. In 60 years of military command, the hegemony had never catalogued infrastructure as weaponry, because no species in the known catalog used patience as an offensive doctrine. No species had ever possessed he searched for the word, the grief necessary to build a loaded weapon and leave it unfired for a decade. To watch an enemy approach, to know the range, to hold the shot while people died, because the moment was not yet perfectly right. His voice was very quiet when he spoke again. Open a channel to the human command frequency. Adiz was reading the list when her comms chimed. She did not hurry. She finished the last name, Ensign Talyawani Adeyemi, 23 years old, 3 weeks into his first posting, folded the paper, placed it in her breast pocket, and then walked to the communication station and opened the channel. Paramount Lecter Osavain Thul. She said his name like she had known it for years. She had. His voice, when it came, was the voice of a creature encountering an edge it had not known existed. Admiral. You have been waiting. Yes. A pause. In the pause she heard the shape of a species encountering a concept their entire civilization had never required a word for. How long? He asked. 12 years, she said. Since Kepler Station. Since you killed 412 of my people and taught me that the right moment requires patience. She paused. I was a quick learner. Another silence. Then, you will not find us easy to destroy. I know. Her voice was not cruel. It was something quieter than cruelty. I don't want to destroy you, Paramount Lecter. I want you to go home, and I want you to tell every species that trades with the hegemony, every species that fears the hegemony, every species that has heard of humanity and concluded we are prey, I want you to tell them what you found when you reached into our silence. And what did I find? Adiz glanced at Voss, who gave a single quiet nod. 911 targeting systems, fully active, 943 locks confirmed, awaiting her word. She had prepared this answer for 12 years. She had refined it the way you refine a thing you intend to carry to your grave. You found that we were never quiet, she said. We were aiming. The Sethavari 9th Expeditionary Force withdrew from the human home system over the following 18 hours, a process conducted in total silence from the human side, no celebration, no transmission, no victory broadcast. The 911 platforms held their locks throughout the withdrawal and released them only when the last Sethavari vessel crossed back over the outer beacon threshold. Babatunda cried, briefly, at his station. He was not the only one. Adiz walked to the small window at the far end of the bunker that looked out into 3 kilometers of Martian rock, and she stood there alone for a while. She did not feel victory the way she had imagined she would feel it, in the early years. She felt something heavier and cleaner, the specific relief of a person who has carried a stone for so long that setting it down does not feel like freedom but like a new kind of weight. The weight of what comes after. She took the list from her breast pocket. She did not unfold it. She held it in her hands for a long time, in the silence that was finally hers to choose. 3 days later, a hegemony diplomatic courier arrived at the neutral station at Locale 9352 bearing a single message, addressed to Admiral Adiz Okonkwo, from Paramount Lecter Osavain Thul. The message contained no words. It contained a list of 412 names. His. He had looked them up. In the years that followed, 26 spacefaring civilizations quietly revised their threat assessments of the species called humanity, and the revision was always the same: remove the word reactive. Replace it with nothing. Leave the space blank, the way you leave space beside a name that no longer requires an explanation. Because the most dangerous thing in the known galaxy was not a species that fought back. It was a species that waited until fighting back was no longer necessary. And then showed you, very quietly, what they had been holding all along.